So you want to get into reading in 2025, but you do not know where to start. I actually want to be serious about it this time. Here are some book recommendations that actually will get you into reading. Like actually will. I'm taking book recommendations that I've read that got me out of like a year, 2-year reading slump. And now I read like easily, like I can read up to what, 5 to 10 books a month. And it's easy for me. It doesn't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like I'm forcing myself to do it. It actually is enjoyable. So that is what I'm doing today. I'm going to be giving you some book recommendations that will get you into reading. I'm going to try to cover as many genres as I can, ranging from fantasy, romance, dystopian, and mostly in that fiction type because that's what I read and that's personally what I know my facts from. Saying these are books that actually will get you into reading, and I feel like got me into reading in terms of each of these genres, like got me more interested in each of these genres. Here we go. We're gonna go ahead and just get started. And by the way, hi, my name is Samaya Girl. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe because you already clicked on the video. Yeah, but I love books, I love reading, so if you're interested in that, you can find more on this channel, but be on the lookout. I made a list like yesterday of all the books that I believe are very, very good in terms of like what you want to get more into reading. I have some of the books over here. Some of the books are still on the shelves because if I took them off the shelves, it would have caused chaos. So I'm just going to show a picture, but I do have some of them in this messy corner over here. A lot of these books you probably already might have heard of. That's only because I believe that a book is really popular because of how good it is. If you hear a lot about it, don't expect this best American literature in the world. It's not going to be, but it's going to be enjoyable. You're going to have a fun time, and that's what it's about. That's what reading is about, especially if you're into fiction. I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. This is the book that got me out of my year's worth reading slump. Such a quick read. It's easy, it's interesting. Yes, it's cliche, but I had a fun time reading it. And that is One of Us is Lying. I have it right here. This book and this author, I just really love her writing. It's so fast-paced, it's interesting, it's a YA novel, and it's fun. I had a really nice time reading this novel, and I just got this book thinking, hey, I want to read something, and this seems to be, it was like on sale, it's like $10, so I'm just gonna get it. It looks interesting enough. I read it, guys. I spent like probably over hundreds worth of books in that same month because I read this book. YA is just an addicting genre, and I feel like if you want to get into reading, starting off with YA, no matter your age, I feel like can be really nice because it tends to be really fast-paced a lot of times, so that's really cool. As you can see, actually you can't, but I also have the sequel, and there's also another sequel that I haven't read yet, but like this series is so good and just got me really in. And it's a mystery. It's not anything scary. It's not anything, well, someone does die. That's not a spoiler. Someone does die. It's nothing like too scary or graphic. It's just someone dies. That's the most graphic thing that happens. 4 different people, they end up in detention, and they're just like, okay, one of us, they were in, okay, let me explain this again.
One of Us is Lying is a thrilling mystery about 5 high school students who walk into detention, but only 4 walk out alive. When a creator of the school's gossip app is murdered, secrets unravel and everyone has something to hide. Who's lying and who's the killer?
Next story is, do I have this with me? No, but it's up there in my shelf. I didn't feel like taking it down. The Inheritance Game is also a mystery, also kind of has a tinge of romance in it. When I tell you, I felt like this is one of the most fun I had reading a book because like it felt like you were solving the mystery with her. This girl just becomes a billionaire out of nowhere, and basically she's just trying to figure out how, why, and they're trying to figure out why she received all these billions of dollars and not his own grandsons. And overall it's just interesting, it's romance, it's it's everything, and you as readers kind of feel like you're solving the mystery with her, and it's just like an easy, quick read. There's three, actually I think there's a fourth book that I haven't got to yet, but next year. This is another book that I read that got me out of my reading slump of years and got me back into reading. Every last word. Guys, when I tell you, this book is like an emotional roller coaster. Such a quick read, so emotional, so good. I just had a nice time reading this. It's so good. And that's in a contemporary romance type. Staying in that genre is all this time. I associate these books a lot with one another because they remind me of each other a lot. They both have plot twists, big plot twists. They're so good, emotional, so heart-wrenching. If you're just into that, and if you want to get into that, start with these. They're so easy to read, so fast to get through. Just read. This book is really popular. You heard this book, you know this book, you love this book. Fourth Wing. This book, this book came out like what, last year? This book is so good. So good. Like, people talk about it for a reason, and not only is it so good, it's so easy to understand. I've never read a dragon based fantasy, and I was really scared getting into this because I was like, oh my gosh, like I won't know like dragon stuff like that. I'm gonna be so confused, I'm gonna drift off. No, I understood it. It was good. And the best part is it's in what, first person. A lot of people I've heard read Fourth Wing has gotten into books even more and explored fantasy, and this is such a fun book to really get to it. And I read Fourth Wing like literally a few months ago, and now I'm literally on a fantasy streak. Like, I've been reading fantasy books like that, and even though there's romance in it, it's actually a good plot. And I feel like a lot of times in fantasy or romantasy, authors can miss that point because you can be like, okay, we know the couple, but what even is this book about? Like, fans are actually excited for the third book, I feel like, more in terms of like what's gonna happen. I recommend starting this series and then we'll have a third book to read in January. Staying in this genre, I didn't take out the series, but I have it deep in my bookshelf and I will not make a mess to get it out. But this is the last book in the series. It's A Court of Thorns and the Roses. This was like one of my first major fantasies I read. I don't even know if you would consider it a major fantasy, but it's a fantasy. It's big on romance, big on romance. It has a plot too, but big on romance. I feel like a lot of people might bash on it, but in terms of getting into fantasy and just hopping into the world, I feel like this has easy world building and it's just like enjoyable. So many different characters, and I just had a time reading it because I had the whole series. My mom got me the whole series, so I got to read the whole series in literally a month. I enjoyed it. The books are like 600 pages each after the second book, but it's so good. It's so good. Like, not like really, if you want to get in reading, it's easy to understand, and yeah, very beautiful people, abnormally beautiful people. In terms of romantasy, these are amazing places to start. This is kind of back into that contemporary YA. This is one of my favorite books ever. The Hate You Give. I think this is an older book, but this book is so good. I just like really love, it's very activism type led, and it's a very big message, powerful message being led, and I know it spoke to me, especially as a Black girl. But I feel like no matter who you are, you should read this. This book is just life-changing. I feel like everyone should read it. I feel like it opens your eyes a little bit, and it's just like you can make a change. And it's about this girl basically fighting for her friend who dealt with police brutality, got killed from it. And it's so good. It's in a contemporary, it's YA, it's fast-paced, it's easy to read. It has a movie, so you have something to watch after. And I feel like you see all of these awards. Like, it's so good. Next is, I have the whole series, but it's the Legend series. This is a dystopian YA book. Dystopian is one of my favorite books ever. If you guys don't know what that is, just think of the Hunger Games. You know what the Hunger Games is. It's basically like future when the government takes over, like complete control, thing we don't want. And reading about it and reading about like YA dystopian is one of the best genres ever, and I just love experiencing it because you really feel like you're in it. Legend is an underrated, fast-paced series that I feel like you should read, and not only that, it has a comic book, so you can experience the series in two different ways. It has romance in it, but it's like it's not your cliche romance. And the way I almost cried at the last book, the series is so good, one of my favorite series, and just reading this got me more into this genre. It's so dystopian, it's just so good. And if you read books that are series, it will make you more into reading series. Eventually add up, you'll eventually read so many books. Good plot, good characters, you'll be feeling frustrated, sad, happy, laughing. It's so good, so easy, fast-paced to read, but like it feels like so much is going on. But I recommend this series so much. Legend, go buy it. Next, we are moving into historical fiction romance. One of my favorite series ever is Bridgerton, so you know I had to get the book. I've read I watched the series first before I read both the books. I only read 2, but they're so good. They're so good. So this is the first Bridgerton book. This is my favorite Bridgerton book, and this is the one I recommend. The Viscount. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Naomi. Okay. Naomi's the dog. The Viscount Who Loved Me. This is Anthony and Kate's book story. Anthony is the oldest child. You know the series, you know the plot. The only thing, this is like so different from the series. It's not a copy and paste, so it's like I was reading a whole nother story from Anthony and Kate. So if you're like you're into Bridgerton, if you want to read, I recommend the Bridgerton series because it's nothing like the series in a way, and it's just so good. It has scenes from the series, but it's like still its own story, and this is the original, and it's just so good. Julia Quinn writes in a way that, you know, Jane Austen, you know, what you would expect, but it's easy to read and it's so good. If you want to get into that Bridgerton series, and it's like what, 9 books in that series, so many books, so you'll be flying through them. Another one of my favorite books that is still on its bookshelf is All the Right Places. So good, so sad, so heart-wrenching. I literally cried at the end. I never cried so hard in the book like I did that one. So like if you want to get into those more like books that are more emotional, good book to read. Good book to read. An amazing message. Next, I haven't pulled this series out, is The Cruel Prince. It also falls in fantasy. If you are into YA fantasy, because those other fantasies, Fourth Wing and A Court of Thorn and Roses, are in new adult, which means it's more graphic, way more graphic. So if you want to get more in that YA fantasy, I recommend The Cruel Prince. The Cruel Prince is so good. The characters, the land is just so magical. It's so beautiful. The plot is so good. It's actually enemies to lovers, slow burn, all of that, and it's so good, and I recommend it, guys, if you want to get into it. I think The Cruel Prince was one of my first fantasies I read, and another reason how I got out of my book slump is 3 books you can read by really fast. I recommend it, guys. Read it. Okay, next, whole different genre, nonfiction, but my favorite type of nonfiction is memoirs. I love memoirs because they feel like fiction, and then I love being like, wow, this is someone's life, and it's just so good and so interesting. The book that got me into memoirs was Somebody's Daughter, and then I'll put the plot up here. I remember being able to just zoom past it. It did not feel like I was reading nonfiction. It did not feel like I was reading someone's life, and it was so good, and I recommend it personally if you want to get into memoirs and things like that. This book is a great book to start, and it's just like an author's journey to start from the bottom to the top, and it's so inspiring. And that's another thing I like about memoirs, is that they're real and inspiring, and it's just so great. And I love that book, and I read it on my Kindle, which is right here, which I recommend you also get, because if you get a Kindle, you can read way more books, spend way less money. You just need a subscription, and you can have access to literally like half these books I just named. Next is for classics. This is very cliche, but guys, come on. I've read like 3 of her books, I want to say. It is Jane Austen. It's up there. I don't want to get it. I'll show you later. But just overall, her romance books, it's just so, if you may recognize her book Pride and Prejudice, Emma, they're so good. I love romance, and I feel like connecting romance to classical literature has been a way that made it easier for me to read and get through it, and it's actually interesting. I actually remember it. My first book I read by her is Persuasion, and it's actually really good. I tend to be more of an audio listener when it comes to classics, but I read like most of that book before I went on an audiobook. But overall, I feel like it's so good, and I love, she has a movie for almost like all her books, so I love watching the movie right after reading it, and it's so good. If you want to get into classics, good place to start, amazing place to start. There's a reason you know her name, you recognize her name. She has a million movies based on her books. Last I have on my list is another classic. If you also want to get into classics, but this is not out of the romance genre. I think I listened to this audiobook. To Kill a Mockingbird is actually so good. It's more of a modern type of classical literature, and it covers so many good themes. It also kind of has that activism type plot into it if you're interested in that. But like, I just remember listening to it, and I was like, this is actually so interesting. Like, I am enjoying this. I want to know where this comes from, where, like, how this continues, and it's just like nice being able to read and enjoy the classics. If you want to get into classics, I recommend that book. Overall, guys, that is all the book recommendations I have. I feel like that was so many. I feel like that was a good place to start for so many different genres. If you want to get into reading, 2025 is the year to read more. There's so many good books coming out next year, and you don't want to be left out. Like, reading is such an amazing privilege we have, and I just think these books are amazing. These books right here that I have told you will actually get you into reading. No joke, no joke. They got me into reading. They got me out of a year's worth slump. They will get you into reading. Like, I promise you, they're all fast-paced, interesting, quick, and enjoyable plots. But I want to thank all of you for tuning in and watching and staying to the end, because I see you. If you enjoyed this book video and these book recommendations, please subscribe for more. Yeah, and happy holidays, guys. I'm so excited for the new year, new reads, and I just very proud of this list and being able to, grateful for these books, because they got me to reading so much more, so many other books you can't see. But I really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, subscribe, like, if you want to see more. My name is Tamaya Earl. I'm a new creator, so I would really appreciate it. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you, hopefully I will see you next time. But thank you so much for watching. Bye.